Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Yeah, as Attorney Baker said, it was really like a George Orwell story in there. Never in my career as a lawyer had I heard the prosecutor argue so adamantly for a convicted felon who had been convicted by a jury who heard all the evidence. The judge talked about how she was troubled. She agreed with Ms. Palmer that it seemed to be a 180-degree about face in the courtroom, the arguments that they were making, saying that he should get 1 day in prison, even though the jury convicted him of a crime, even though there was a sentencing guideline that said he could get up to life in prison. They said 1 day, 1 day. So I agree with Attorney Baker. We thank the judge for her attention to detail and for setting the record straight that he was convicted of depriving Breonna Taylor of her civil rights, Fourth Amendment seizure. And that is a crime that we acknowledge in America that you go to prison for. So he is going to prison, and we have to keep watching as to when he is going to go to prison.
Ka halayim la Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Waha Recha Kwadash. All praises and glory go to you, Lord. Double honors and respect go to our apostles, bishops, elders, and teachers, the men of great millstone. To you I say shalom. Salutations to the hopeful elect. It's your brother Amraya. And today we're visiting the sentencing of ex-police officer Brett Hankinson, the murderer of Breonna Taylor. All right. And if you don't know about that, please look it up. We're not going to revisit the details of that story in much detail. The overview is she was in her home sleeping when they executed a warrant. I'm not sure if it was on the right address or not, for the boyfriend, and she was deleted inside of her own home by this police officer. All right. Now, today, this officer, Brett Hankinson, self-proclaimed so-called white man from the biblical nation of Esau, Edom, was sentenced to 33 months in prison. And what I find disturbing is that President Donald Duck Trump and the DA over this case were arguing adamantly that this man, this murderer, only received 1 day in prison. All right. If they had it their way, he wouldn't have done any time. All right. This is how these devils are, man. All right. The nation of Esau, Edom, your enemy. And we were sold to your enemies. All right. By we, I mean you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and North American Indians. You are the true tribes of Israel. You are Hebrew Israelites spoken of in the Holy Scriptures. And you were sold to your enemy, man. You were delivered into their hands by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, for violating the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Holy Scriptures, as well as losing belief and faith in the one whom you ignorantly call God and whom you ignorantly call Jesus. All right. So as a punishment for delivering up our Savior, disregarding and rebelling against the laws, statutes, and commandments, we are now in the valley of the shadow of death, man, under these heathens who are to rule over us until we are redeemed. Now, dealing with this man only receiving 33 months, that's a slap on the wrist. There have been people that have committed far less aggressive crimes that have received far more time. All right. There are people caught with marijuana that have gotten longer sentences than this officer got for violating this woman's civil rights and murdering her. All right. And that's just how it is here in the valley of the shadow of death. All right. Now, dealing with the law on what should happen to someone in this situation, that has committed murder, the scriptures are very specific what should have happened in this case. But though this man claims to be a Christian, claims to follow the law, statutes, and commandments, they clearly don't. All right. This is the devil. They don't believe in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. They don't believe that there are consequences for their behavior, and they go about doing demonic shit. All right. But there are laws specific to what should have occurred dealing with that murder. You can find some of this outlined right here in Exodus chapter 21. Verse 12 is where I begin. It says, "He that smiteth a man so that he die, surely shall be put to death." Right. All right. The correct sentence of Brett Hankinson was that he was to be put to death, all right, by a close relative of the victim. All right. Verse 13. "And if a man lie in wait, but Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai delivereth him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither thou shalt flee, a city of refuge." All right. A prison, so to speak, because once you go into a city of refuge, well, it goes on to explain, but once you go into a city of refuge, you leave at your own choice, man. And if you leave and you get unalived by the relative of that victim, it's your own fault. So once you go into a city of refuge, you got to stay there, man. But let's continue reading. Verse 14, "But if a man come presumptuously unto his neighbor and slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die. And if he smiteth his father or mother, surely Salakia shall be surely put to death. And he that stealeth a man," notice this is all the MO of the so-called self-proclaimed white man, the biblical nation of Esau, Edom. Verse 16 again, if he that stealeth a man and sell him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Let's just skip down to the point because there's more on this. All right. Exodus 21 and 24. It says, actually, Exodus 21 and 23. "And if mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe." Huh? All right. It's eye for an eye. So as this officer did onto Breonna Taylor, it was supposed to be done onto him. All right. This is the law of the Most High. All right. Those of you that want to forgive and forget, these Edomites ain't doing that for you. All right. Let you kill one of their loved ones. All right. And you've seen many examples of officers who were not Edomites that have killed someone's loved one, and they didn't stop until that officer was heavily punished. All right. But not in the biblical way, because again, they're supposed to be put to death. I'll read this in the New Living Translation. It says, "Anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death." Huh? "But if it was simply an accident permitted by Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, I will appoint a place of refuge where the slayer can run for safety." Right. However, if someone deliberately kills another person, then the slayer must be dragged even from mine altar and be put to death. Anyone who strikes father or mother must be put to death. Kidnappers must be put to death, whether they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. These are the laws of the Holy Scriptures, man. All right. This is the statutes outlined by the Holy Scriptures, man. And as it says, Exodus 21 and 23, "But if there is further injury, the punishment must match the injury, a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. All right. And this is also lamented in Numbers. This is Numbers chapter 35, and I'll begin at verse 16. And if he smite him with an instrument of iron, so that he die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. And if he smite him with throwing a stone, wherewith he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. All right. All the same laws outlined. All right. Now, for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. I'm going to grab the New Living Translation, and we'll read this through one time. All right. Starting at verse 16 again, Numbers 35 and 16, it says, but if someone strikes and kills another person with a piece of iron, it is murder. Huh? And the murderer must be executed. Or if someone with a stone in his hand strikes and kills another person, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. Or if someone strikes and kills another person with a wooden object, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. Do you see this eye for an eye theme here? So what was supposed to happen to Brett Hankinson? Correct. He is to be put to death, all right, by a close relative of the victim. Continue reading, verse 19. The victim's nearest relative is responsible for putting the murderer to death. When they meet, the avenger must put the murderer to death. So if someone hates another person and pushes him or throws a dangerous object at him and he dies, it is murder. Or if someone hates another person and hits him with a fist and he dies, it is murder. In such cases, the avenger must put the murderer to death when they meet. But suppose someone pushes another person without having shown previous hostility, or throws something that unintentionally hits another person, or accidentally drops a huge stone on someone, though they were not enemies, and the person dies. If this should happen, the community must follow these regulations in making a judgment between the slayer and the avenger and the victim's nearest relative. The community must protect the slayer from the avenger and must escort the slayer back to live in the city of refuge, to which he fled. There he must remain until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with the sacred oil. But if the slayer ever leaves the limits of the city of refuge, and the avenger finds him outside the city and kills him, it will not be considered murder. All right. These are the laws dealing with murder, all right, which were not followed in this case. I don't know why they're screaming Breonna Taylor's name in the video. She did not receive justice. True justice was that this Edomite was to be put to death over her murder. Plain and simple, all right? But see, in this country, we are truly in the valley of the shadow of death. There is no covering until we are redeemed. All right, this is Zechariah chapter 11, and I'll begin at verse 4. It says, thus saith Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. All right, and this is just another variation of them holding themselves not guilty, man. All right, 33 months. Man, you've seen so many other people receive harsher sentences for a fraction. But these Edomites, they don't hold themselves guilty, man. They're able to kill with impunity. And in this situation, Trump and the DA was arguing for this MFer to receive 1 day in prison. What the hell is that, man? As you heard from the lawyer himself, he said he had never seen something like this. But he's a fool, because their whole judicial system, this pit they have created, has been doing this to the Israelites from day one. They slay us and they hold themselves not guilty. Verse 5 again, whose possessors slay them. Esau, Edom is killing off Israelites with impunity and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. All right. Your shepherds, your pulpit pimps They ain't out here rioting and looting or stirring up a hornet's nest on behalf of Breonna Taylor. They're calling this 33 months justice, man. A bunch of pussies, if you ask me. But see, they have already co-signed with this devil. That's why they get these 501c3s. All right? But the time is coming very quickly when the Heavenly Father is about to punish these devils. And we're coming into that time very soon. Verse 6, for I will no more pity the inhabitants of the land, saith Yahweh. But lo, I will deliver the men, every one into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his king. And they shall smite the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. All right? So we're stuck here until Yahushua returns. Getting this in the New Living Translation, just to be thorough. We'll begin at verse 4 again. It says, Zechariah 11:4. This is what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai says. Go and care for the flock that is intended for slaughter. This was his intention, putting us in bondage in America, Babylon the Great. Spiritual Egypt, spiritual Babylon, spiritual Sodom. Verse 5. The buyers slaughter their sheep without remorse. The sellers say, praise Yahweh. Now I'm rich. Even the shepherds have no compassion for them. Verse 6, likewise, I will no longer have pity on the people of the land, saith Yahweh. I will let them fall into each other's hands and into the hands of their king. They will turn the land into a wilderness, and I will not rescue them. All right. And this is also lamented in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. It says, and Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning redeem you. Until Yahushua returns, we're stuck under these devils, man. And this is prophetic, because these curses cleave onto our people, and this is how we identify who we are as a nation. And yet some in Israel cannot see, for they were not given the oil, the understanding, the wisdom from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. But no more talk. This is just another example of them slaying us and holding themselves not guilty. Shalom.
Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Breonna Taylor. Yeah, as Attorney Baker said, it was really like a George Orwell story in there. Never in my career as a lawyer had I heard the prosecutor argue so adamantly for a convicted felon who had been convicted by a jury who heard all the evidence. The judge talked about how she was troubled. She agreed with Ms. Palmer that it seemed to be a 180-degree about face in the courtroom, the arguments that they were making, saying that he should get 1 day in prison, even though the jury convicted him of a crime, even though there was a sentencing guideline that said he could get up to life in prison. They said 1 day, 1 day. So I agree with Attorney Baker. We thank the judge for her attention to detail and for setting the record straight that he was convicted of depriving Breonna Taylor of her civil rights, Fourth Amendment seizure. And that is a crime that we acknowledge in America that you go to prison for. So he is going to prison, and we have to keep watching as to when he is going to go to prison.